Hello and welcome back inside. Oh, Duval, nice shout, Paul. Welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 868. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. If you're listening to this podcast, you may want to pump the brakes, son. You may want to go back and listen to podcast 867 because that's part one of a two-part series of F1's biggest scandals and, as Paul might say, controversies. Yes, this is part two. Hello and welcome to side two of the album. So that's old school there. You know, I still listen to albums. I'm sorry. I don't, it's just me.
We have a
It's
record
me.
player.
You listen to vinyl?
Yeah. I still have a
nice.
bunch of vinyl, but my record player doesn't work. So, but,
Makes it tough.
Yeah.
Makes it really hard.
Maybe
he just
get-
spins it as his own needle.
He uses his dogs. He's got a safety pin
Yeah.
and just tells the dogs to run around the.
Yeah.
I think that's Dark Side of the Moon, but could
I
not
know.
be.
Well,
I'm not sure.
last Christmas I was pulling a Donna Reed and I was trying to turn the spits to cook the chicken in the fireplace, and with the record player and the thimble and it broke it. So,
Oh.
Yeah, and it's all good until the dogs run the opposite direction, and then who knows
Then
what
you
Todd's gonna hear.
Then you find out Paul is dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
McCartney, not me. But yeah.
Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. Yeah. So there's that. Yes, obviously Grace is here with us. Paul is here with us. It's a two-parter. In the first part of this riveting series, we decide.
So much sarcasm already.
Wow.
I
I'm
know.
really
I
enthused
thought
about
it was
this
pretty
one
good.
now.
All
I'm
right.
really
Aren't you,
excited
though?
about.
Aren't you? It's riveting.
What does it all mean, Basil?
I don't know. And everybody's sitting at home going, "Get to the show!
This is the
This
show.
is the show."
Unfortunately,
There,
I'm just
Yeah.
continuing the let's just put the whole thing down. It's pretty
Okay.
English. Yeah.
That's our mood for the rest of this episode.
It is.
Hey,
smoke up,
Johnny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Paul, it just revealed to us that as a young child, he sat in the Formula One stands getting cigarettes off of women in bathing suits back in the 70s. So there's Paul, impressionable 8-year-old Paul, ripping on a Rothschild or a Gaulois up there watching James Hunt fly by. Come on, you bastard! You can see Paul.
Yeah.
It was JPS at Marlborough's. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
do you
local wars in England.
And Paul turned into a Peaky Blinder and was like killing people over a pack of Reds,
Right.
in Essex. That's how Paul rolled, man. You
So, Paul,
mess with Paul, you pull back a bloody stump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't say controversies. We just make that up.
I
about
don't. No, Derek Bell
No, he
might.
doesn't.
Maybe Sterling Moss used to.
Sterling Moss.
I don't even know what I say anymore. I'm the international way. I have no accent. I'm
You.
just.
There you go. You all of it. All right.
I'm a mesh.
Yeah, you are.
Monaco.
He doesn't
Okay.
say
Yeah.
Monaco either.
I don't
That's
think I ever
unfortunate.
said that. I think
I
it's
know.
always
No.
Monaco. Yeah.
You should start. There's always a time for.
I'm
This should
from
be your.
Essex, not from like where Ian James is from.
This should be your New
Offside.
Year's resolution for 2024. Start calling it Monaco.
Okay, I will. I'll just use all the. Yeah.
Does-
Whenever it comes
does-
up in conversation.
Yeah.
Does Ian James call it Monaco?
Well, he would because he's he's from Sussex, so they're posh over there.
Is he a bit of a dandy?
He, yeah.
Or our viewership just went down by 1.
Well, luckily he doesn't listen to the show, so I don't have to worry about losing my
That's
job.
good.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
There
call
you
a
go.
spade a spade at this point.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Oh gosh, the things you learn talking to Paul
Yeah.
casually. It's
That's
amazing. And I know what everyone's thinking. Get to the show.
This is
This
the
is
show.
the show. It's
People,
part 2.
it's the off
It
off
is.
season.
It is
Have
the
you
off-
never been? We've been doing this show for quite some time. Welcome to the
know.
off
I
season.
know.
It's
Grace
Calm
warns
down.
that.
favorite, I thought.
Yeah, Grace warns us every off season. She
Can
says
you make out
you're
what that says
gonna
on
get
there, by the way?
spa.
Does it say spa?
Mm.
Oh, is that the mighty spa?
That's from Spa. I
Oh.
stole
Yeah,
it from
Paul-
the hotel bar.
Well, did you know that it can be
You're
dry on one
talking
part
about
of
me
that
stealing
glass?
cigarettes. I steal cutlery and glass as well.
Used to work
Now
for a
that's
good-
two
good
people who
guy.
aren't listening to this show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, did you know
Never
it
let
could
me
be
know.
it could be wet on one part of that glass and not on the other?
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
it's pretty weird.
Surprise! Mine say cat lady.
Oh, that
I don't
is
know
a
if you can
surprise.
see that.
The
Oh, yeah, I
cat
can see
lady.
There
the
we go.
whiskers.
Here's,
It says
here's
cat lady.
boy, look
There
at you guys.
go.
You guys are all liquored up, and I'm sitting here drinking water out of my Yeti. I do have
Is this your-
a sticker on here. You know what this is? It says, so I really think the thing to take away from
Don't
all
wash
this
in the-
is that everything is good and is basically fine. So that's all good. That's from W1A, by the way.
Oh,
Perfect.
okay.
Were you gonna say don't put in the dishwasher?
Yeah. Yeah. Do not wash the dishwasher.
Wash by hand only, Todd.
No, it says right here, plastic is not a toy.
Keep out of the
That's what it
hands
says.
of small children.
Mhm.
Right.
Suffocation hazard.
I'm running
Yeah.
with the Yeti. I'm running with the Yeti.
Yeah, I will from time to time.
Yeah.
So, in this
Yeah.
podcast, episode number 2, we're going to try to parse things down a little. You remember last
Mhm.
episode, we came up with categories, right? We had team controversies and on track incidents and the gates, right? So, Grace took copious notes, and she compiled all them. And she sent them over to Paul and I. And so now we have categories. See, Paul's holding them up for those watching on YouTube. And
notes.
Grace, nice chartreuse
Some pink
colored
paper?
Nice. So anyway, we've got these categories, right? And what Paul has asked us to do,
Yep.
and with threat of physical harm if we didn't,
Oh.
was to go through each category
Bite your
and
kneecaps.
rank our top
Yep.
3 on each category, right? So that is what we've done. Now, what I'll start to do is we're going to go through the scandals, controversies. I will read you all of the ones in our list that we came up with between the 3 of us. Here's a bit of a caveat real quick, folks. We know that there are many other controversies out there or scandals. I know that. But when we thought to make our own list and then on the first episode kind of compile them, these are the controversies that we thought of. It kind of came off our top of our head, and there's reasons that we thought of those versus the other ones. However,
Yeah.
thanks for the comments, because there were some great comments about ones that did actually make it onto this list.
Yeah.
We added it after that first episode of the first podcast. So thanks for those recommendations. Some of those we had missed that we think, ooh, that was pretty heavy, right? So we've added those. So we're going to go through each category. I'm going to read all of the ones that we had under those categories, not all the ones that existed in time, but the ones we talked about. And then we're going to go through each of us, and we're going to talk about our top 3. And then we're going to explain why they were our top 3. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a great plan.
Clear as
It is
mud.
until we get through the first category
Yeah.
and it completely falls apart, and then we'll
Yeah.
have to make up
And
something else on the
we all
fly.
pick the same one.
It'll
Yeah.
be totally fine.
It's okay. We can all have the same reasons. It's okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And by the time
Yeah.
we get to the third category, everybody listening's going to be like,
What does it all mean,
I
Basil?
don't know. We're just, it's the off season.
It's
Okay,
easy.
so let's start at the very top under team controversies or controversies. Okay, here we go. Team controversy is number 1 is Gilles Villeneuve, Didier Pironi, 1982. And if you remember from last podcast, we talked about that, where this got really, really intense. And I even argued that it may have cost Gilles his life. That rivalry between the two of them, that was a fierce rivalry. Second is end of team orders. Remember when Schumacher and Barrichello pulled the stunt and he let I'm getting a lot of breath from you, Grace, in your mic.
She's just excited about your picks.
I think she
I don't
is
know.
excited.
Is that better?
Probably.
Okay.
And so that was the end. Luke, I am your father.
Don't ruin it.
Find your father. Yes.
So it's Barrichello and Schumacher, and then they did that team orders right at the right at the finish line that became sort of a farce, and Schumacher put Barrichello on the top step and all that good stuff. Third, Multi 21. We all remember Sebastian Vettel and Mac Weba on Multi 21. That was in Malaysia 2013. And then the return of the team orders. As Grace pointed out, Alonso is faster than you, right? When Smedley said that in Germany, 2010, that stirred up a few things. And then this one, which I thought was great. Does anyone remember Alonso holding up Hamilton in the pit lane? Remember they stacked the stops and Alonso just sat there. Everybody was like, go, go, go. And he just kind of sat there and waited and pretty much, ruined Lewis's chance. That was pretty crafty.
He was smart that long ago.
Yes, he was.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, pretty devious guy. And then the next one is Nico Rosberg versus Lewis Hamilton, Spain 2016. Which, and I can also argue Mirabeau, but anyway, that was a big shunt that created a stir. And then finally in this category, Sauber has 3 drivers. I had totally forgot about that, Grace.
I forgot about this too until somebody brought it up.
Yeah, in
the
2015,
the recently retired Guido van der Garde.
Yes, and that guy's hilarious. If you follow his,
I was gonna say follow him. There's no.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I see him. I see him a lot of the races because he drives P2 cars in IMSA.
So you don't have to follow him because you could see him in real life. The rest
I
of
literally
us,
follow
however,
him into the drivers' meetings. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the rest of us.
But I've
can
never
only follow
spoken
on
to him.
X.
Yeah.
We'll come up
You
with
should.
a good one-liner, knock joke, something.
Okay, if he's a funny
share
guy,
with him.
then maybe I should. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Say hi.
hilarious.
You
His
should sit
social media
beside
is-
him if nothing else.
I'll tie his
right?
shoelaces together. He'll love it.
That'd be great.
sit behind him and do the bunny ears and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mature.
Imagine doing
adult
that to
human.
people who have no idea who you are. So.
That'd be great. So the guy from Aston Martin's just constantly putting bunny ears. I don't know what the hell's wrong with that guy. They go, he's English.
Determinative endearment.
Yeah.
Where he's from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like when Grace and I grew up, hits equal hugs.
That's right.
That's
That is
right.
definitely how I grew up.
Yeah. So that is that's our category top, and those are the controversies, team controversies that we had under there. So Paul, let's start with you.
Ooh, okay.
And you give us your top 3 under that, out of the ones I listed.
Yep. So my in third place, I'm going to go with the Gilles Peroni incident.
Okay.
It was I mean, as I said, I was a young kid when this happened, but I was actually a Peroni fan. Villeneuve was, just a crazy lunatic driver that could drive everything sideways, and he got all kinds of things happened to him and everything. But I was actually more a Peroni fan, and it just became a much bigger thing, right? That when he died, it didn't make any sense at all. It was a pretty horrific crash, honestly, and I remember seeing it when it was live on TV. But and the history and everything behind it didn't really come out till later on, right? And I really do think it was a very big deal that kind of showed Peroni's true self. And of course, everything's hearsay, I guess, but it seems like there's enough people saying it was a correct thing, and that's actually what was the pact was made, and that Peroni, maybe it was a bit desperate because Villeneuve was so good and so quick. So it was a real shame that Villeneuve's temperament took him into a place, and you could say, well, it caused his death. It just put him in a bad place. And he made a mistake, and unfortunately, but it was obviously a very tragic day and build up to it, and I'm sure Peroni. In the end, they were good friends. They never spoke to each other again. And actually, that same year, Peroni had a career-ending accident himself. So, so that was a big one for me as a kid. Had a lot of emotions going on there. Second, Multi 21. As I said, Multi 21 was where Webber was in the lead, and at a certain point, if you're in the lead, they call multi-21, which means, second driver, or was it the second qualifier? I can't remember how they came up that numerology. Basically, Webber felt like he was protected and that Seb shouldn't attack him. Seb did. He attacked him, passed him, and went on to win the race. And that's when their biggest rivalry happened. And also, as I said in the last podcast, and also they had a lot of clashes after that. And there's a lot of fake friendships that they put out in front of the media that was more awkward than Schumacher and Barrichello, quite honestly.
It was.
So yeah, I think it was a pretty intense rivalry, and obviously we show. I mean, I love Vettel, but he did have this side of him that a lot of multi-champions do have. That, as you like to say, Todd, he's not going to play witness to anybody, and he kind of took advantage of a situation, which I'm against. If they make a pact, you stick to the pact. But as I said, some people, when they're at that point if they're that talented, they feel like they have the right to win.
Mm-hmm.
And Senna had it, Schumacher had it, Vettel had it, and they don't see any problem with just taking the win, no matter what's been said before. It's like, I'm the person that should be winning this race, so I'm going to claim the race. So,
and you won't be successful in Formula One or anything at this level if you don't feel that way, right?
Right, because no one remembers that you towed the line. I mean, they do remember, and you become the Barrichello and you become the Bottas.
Right.
Exactly.
Right? And a few incidents where maybe you are the evil villain, but you still won the race, and that's the kind of mettle, that's the kind of attitude you have to win world championships, which we saw Rosberg have to have, but
Lewis
he couldn't
had it with
sustain
Alonso.
it any longer. Right. But I mean,
Alonso has it with everyone.
It's difficult, if you're not of that personality, of that mindset, to actually make yourself do it. And I think that's one of the issues that Rosberg had, which leads me into my number one pick, which was the Rosberg Lewis season. I thought that was so intense, and it was so difficult for the team to manage. And just I mean, I think that whole season everyone was on edge within the team.
Mm-hmm.
They still succeeded because they had a great car and they were able to, just win multiple races. But then that incident happened in Barcelona, and you just remember it being in complete shock. I cannot believe this just happened. Those two guys just took each other out, and it was they're driving the best cars in the world, and they couldn't figure out how to. And this wasn't the only incident they had, but I thought the most intense team rivalry, driver to driver, was absolutely Rosberg and Hamilton. The tightest I've ever seen, I think, in the history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good top three. Grace, did you match Paul's top three?
Not completely.
Okay.
Good.
I guess that's something. No, I was going to say, and I think the thing, though, although I didn't put Rosberg and Hamilton in my top three, I think the thing that also makes that more poignant is that they had such friendship. They had been teammates in lower series.
Great point.
I mean, there's lots of pictures of them as kids together, like riding unicycles together. Like, I think there was that made it harder. They weren't just like Charles and Carlos don't like each other, right? And they never, that was fine. They had no relationship before, they'll have no relationship afterwards. But these were two people that had a long-standing relationship with each other, and then not anymore. Okay, so in third, I put Villeneuve and Peroni as well. So that's that. I put in P2, I put the return of team orders, because I thought I was thinking kind of first of all, the Alonso is faster than you. I think that's one of those things that sticks with me, even though I forget why it came from, right? Like that becomes a catchphrase of I always think of a lot of the George W. Bush isms weren't really things he said. They were things said by Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live. But what sticks with me
1,000 points to life.
As something that W said he never said, right? So it's there's that same sort of stickiness of that, Alonso is faster than you, even if I or other people don't remember why that's kind of sticky. But I think team orders in general have always been such a big on and off again thing in racing. It's one of those things you don't want to, as a series, condone it, but you also can't not, you can't
Avoid it,
regulate
yeah.
it either. And so
No.
that's kind of where they came out with, in Germany 2010 was kind of this idea of like, that's it. Do what you want. We're done trying to sort this out. And so that was my number 2. And of course, for number 1, I put the end of team orders in Austria 02 because that's what started this whole like thing, this whole controversy. And
Yeah.
I think too that also stuck because I started watching in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So that was like real early on in my racing my Formula 1 fandom that really was like, oh, okay.
There's more to do this than just running around the track. Yeah.
That's right. So I think that was, so I put Villeneuve and Peroni, then Alonso is faster than you, and then the end of team orders with Austria 02 was my 3.
Huh.
Right.
Very nice. Very nice. My top 3, my third, I had Multi 21 for all the reasons that Paul stated. For my second one, I had end of team orders because as Grace mentioned, I mean, it was ham-fisted in its execution. I think most people knew team orders was happening and it had been happening for quite a while. You can think, you remember
code
Paul,
words and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Going on.
And you remember, Paul, the whole Mika Hakkinen and DC thing at McLaren and the
Right,
team orders,
right.
and there was a lot going on there, right?
Mhm.
Even to the point of Spa 98, some saying that, DC was told to back Schumacher up and to brake check him, right? But so there was a lot of argy-bargy going on back in the 90s, 80s about team orders and that kind of thing. So it had been going on for a while. But what was interesting about that was that they just got so flippant about it, and then Barrichello literally defying it, leaving it to the last moment where it was glaringly obvious, right?
Mhm.
So much so that it was embarrassing. It was shambolic and Schumacher knew it and put Barrichello on the top step and him on second because Schumacher didn't want to take the brand damage, the brand equity hit either,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a pretty big moment. And then my top one was Villeneuve and Peroni. I thought that was a brutal outcome of such a wicked rivalry between the two. I thought that was pretty brutal. And unfortunately, just say Paul, with Villeneuve, put him in a bad place, and he made that mistake, and it was a brutal crash, and just ugly. So anyway,
racing's a mental sport, so something plays with that. Different outcomes up here,
Yeah, I bet you've seen a lot of not only dumb but just downright dangerous things happen born out of red mist. I bet you've seen that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's some drivers that are more tendency for it as well, and you have to kind of give them a little bit of leeway, although you don't really want to. But some people are a lot more easily keyed up, but you can use it against people too if you know the right buttons to push.
Harness it the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
A great motivator.
Is Paul Tracy coming to mind, Paul?
Yeah. When was the last time I thought about that guy? Yes, this is a great example.
My buddy Paul. Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
Oh,
yeah.
PT.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to move to the next. It's computer magic. If you're watching this video of this podcast, you notice that all of a sudden we look different, and if you're listening to this podcast, you may notice we sound a little different. That's because our previous platform that I just signed up for recently just decided to dump us, and we all got dumped out of the studio, and it's still in there recording nothing. But because we all got dumped out, I can't stop recording. So we had to go back to the old Zoom call. It may record nothing forever.
Who knows, right?
Yeah. It may be like CERN over there.
Isn't that Interstellar? Just going to go on forever.
That's right. Yeah. Don't look at the bookshelf. Look at the bookshelf. Don't look at look at the watch. Oh my gosh.
The robots, I'm telling you, are the best part of that movie.
I know. And so we're sitting in the studio. I'm trying to figure this out, folks. I'm like,
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
I do, Hal. You're over there recording no one, and you may record in perpetuity, and eventually you'll break the internet. So stop. For the love of God, stop. Okay. So we're going to continue on our old favorite Zoom.
You're gonna get a phone call, sir. We're gonna need you to stop that recording. I have to stop the recording.
Is this what you want? I can't.
Well, you ever seen the movie Brazil?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna get Robert De Niro's gonna come in the window and he's gonna grab you and take you away.
either that or they're gonna.
The plumber is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, either that or my credit card company is gonna call for an enormous credit card transaction that they had to decline. You know.
Yeah.
It's like this is like $10,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Riverside, get your crap together, would you? All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to the next category. We're going to talk about on-track incidents. Let me run them down. Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen, Silverstone, 2021. Drivers with purposeful slow out laps in quali, 2023. Michael Schumacher versus Jacques Villeneuve in 97 in Jerez. Schumacher's stop at Rascas in Monaco, 2006. We had Ayrton Senna versus Alain Prost, Japan in 1989. And then Damon Hill versus Michael Schumacher in Australia in 1994. Those are the incidents that we all came up with. And we're going to go by who ranked the top three. Paul, we're going to start it with you again. Give us your top three.
All right. So the third one was difficult. And I actually had to tie my two third-place people together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was an option.
It is because we're making up the rules.
That's right. As we go. Points don't matter. Go ahead.
Because I think they were kind of similar in intensity. So I'm going with Schumacher on Villeneuve. And I know the outcome was a bit more on the line with the Schumacher Villeneuve thing, but Lewis and Max at Silverstone. They both just had that same intensity and purpose behind it. And there was a little bit of different where people were fighting. Was it, between the Lewis and Max thing was a different situation for sure. But the ensuing conversations were ensuing for a very long time for both of them, right? People are basically just dissecting the incidents and the intention from time till now, technically still comes up, right? Definitely the Lewis Max thing, I think they pretty much foregone conclusion that Schumacher what he was doing and didn't get away with it because it was for those darn kids. So I those incidents were big, very big, and as I said, they just kind of had ramifications and carried on for a very long time. Second one, obviously, a classic moment in motor racing in general that gets repeated again and again and again. That's the Senna Prost in Japan.
Yeah,
that was, as I said, that the intensity of that relationship was the biggest over Rosberg and Hamilton. I think I even said that maybe that there was more intense, but definitely Prost and Senna was an intense relationship, both positive and negative mostly, and it just accumulated in that big event coming into the chicane there. And just remembering Murray Walker just completely freaking out and screaming and then Senna getting the push, and then going on, and his wing falling off and coming in, and then coming back. Did he come back and then lead the race again? And then they handed the race to Nannini in the end, or So that was a very, very intense on-track moment that no one will ever forget. Who were there, and obviously, as I said, a very repeatable incident they have shown every year, nearly every time you go to Suzuka and watch the Thoughts Grand Prix. But my number one favorite, and I know it's Todd's favorite, it has to be Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher in '94. And whatever you have against Damon Hill, you need to put it aside. your personal clashes. Look at the incident in its bubble, and you'll see that Schumacher should not have been given a title that year. But the rules were the rules at that moment in time. So Schumacher, pretty smart guy, knows what he can and can't get away with. But nowadays, that would be take all your points away, you're banned for 3 races, all this kind of stuff. But back then, that they didn't have that in the rule book. So basically, Schumacher just harpooned Hill and took the title, and he wasn't the first one to do it. I mean, I know a few friends of mine that won titles by basically taking out their competitor on the first corner because they're in the lead of the championship. You take them both out, you win the championship, right? So that was nearly a foregone conclusion back in the Formula 3 days, and Schumacher carried that all the way to the World Championship. So that is my number one moment of incidents.
Number one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Who's going next?
You are, Grace.
All right.
Because Todd's going to say it wasn't an incident at all.
I'm just going to say
I didn't see anything. There was nothing going on.
I really wanted to make all three of these Michael Schumacher related, but I resisted. Because I do think there's something about, like, do we tally who has more things on this list, Michael Schumacher or Fernando Alonso? Because Fernando's in here a lot too. So, like, I don't know. But okay, so for my number 3, I went with Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher in '94. For my number 2, I went with Schumacher Villeneuve, 97. And then for number 1, right, I went with Senna and Prost in '89. So
I was very close to that, Grace. I had as number 3, I had Schumacher Villeneuve. And then number 2, I had Hill and Schumacher.
Ooh.
And then number 1, I had Senna and Prost.
So you did recognize it as an incident, not as just a innocent mistake by a young German.
Apparition.
Hey, I'm going to use the same logic that people use today when, Max goes down the inside or somebody went down the inside of Lewis and say, or on the outside or whatever. I'm going to say, yeah, well, he should have braked and backed out of it. Damon should have braked and backed out of it. Schumacher's turned in, he should have braked and backed out of it.
He was bouncing off the wall with half his wheels.
No, that was before he came back on track. He came back on track, and Hill started to turn, or Hill was going in. Hill's got to, he's got to pump the brakes a little bit. Anytime you try to take on the outside, that's a fool's errand by today's standard.
Gotcha.
No, it was an incident. Of course it was. And
was he at fault? That's the discussion. But
because ultimately he was penalized for it. But
it didn't give Hill his points back.
No, but then to repeat it, 97 with Villeneuve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that did cost him. And Villeneuve won the championship, but yeah, it's super aggressive. Like you said, it's happened before. It happened in '89 with Senna and Prost, and then 90 with Prost Senna, right?
Yeah. As I said, it's a separate mentality that not all of us have. It's not necessary. It doesn't make. It's not necessary just because they're world champion makes them a likable mentality. Sometimes, for the most part, Michael Schumacher was very likable, but there was that little dark side to him, which all of the world champions kind of have, I think.
Yeah, it's like DC brake checking Schumacher at Spa.
That never happened.
I can't believe that didn't make it the whole list.
It was the spray.
Happened. Yeah, it was the spray.
thing that makes every bingo card that's ever been created about this podcast.
Yeah, is Spa 98.
Yeah.
So
right?
anyway, no, I had that up there, so that was mine. But yeah, for me, Senna Prost was just epic. Epic battle. So, all right, let's go to the gates, shall we? We're going to talk about the gates. Here are some of the gates. Exit gate. The fuel flow gate, Ferrari in 2019. Exit gate was 2010. Let's see. Cater gate. That was a Red Bull Racing overspend, right, in 2021.
Or was it?
Have you checked the price of bologna lately? It's expensive.
Yeah.
Let's see. Liegate, Australia 2009, when Lewis lied to the FIA stewards. And then Spankgate.
I refuse to put that into my Google and find out what year that was. I refused.
Yeah.
I don't need anything related to that. I'm surprised they even put it in this Word document.
It was 0809, right?
Yeah. Is there anything? I just ordered the Max Mosley book. I'm guessing there's a little bit about it there.
There's a lot about that. I mean, not a lot about it, but around it. Yes. Yeah.
That's a different book altogether.
Here's me and Helga. Yeah.
Here's the paddle that I preferred with Helga. And I liked, when she had the little line right at the back of the stocking, No, it doesn't have any of that. but he does talk about it.
Yeah.
So there's
Different
Spygate,
details.
Spygate in 07 and then Crashgate in 08 Singapore. So those are the gates. Gates. All right, Grace, we're going to switch it up. We're going with you.
Okay.
Give us your top 3.
Okay, so I went for number 3. I went with Exit Gate because I do think that in 2010 when BMW went out, Toyota went out, wasn't there? I feel like there was more than just that, but those are the 2 that I could remember. But it was a big.
08. That happened in 08. So you had
08.
Toyota, BMW, and Honda, right?
Right. Thank you. I knew there was a third. Right. So I think that was a big upheaval for the sport. Like, I don't think that's something we've seen anywhere else in that same way of just like that many manufacturers just being like, we out.
Gone.
See you later. Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I was gutted back then. I just
I couldn't believe BMW. I mean,
I couldn't believe BMW either.
D-Matt was our guy. So I'm sure if you could go back and listen to those podcasts, we for
Dr.
sure.
Mario.
Luckily, they put all their resources to designing beautiful cars.
Yes, the Chris Bangle era.
The latest era ain't that great either. Did he get rehired or something? Because
no.
Latest batch of BMW is not so great.
Yeah.
No, they're so weird, and I hate the idea that they have now every car now has like giant butts, but we paint the bottom of it black, so maybe you don't notice. Like black is slimming. No, your car is so giant.
Does this make my butt look big?
It does. BMW, your butt is still big, even though they painted it half black. We still can see it.
It's a big booty bimmer,
Oh goodness.
It's a shame.
All right, so that's a good one. Yep.
And then I put Crashgate as number 2 because I don't know that Crashgate has as much. I mean, and maybe Red Bull with Catergate. I also love that. I didn't realize that was what it was, a gate. But with their catering, that may become a bigger thing. I don't know that we quite know what that's going to do with the cost cap.
Good point.
But I think Crashgate was just the hubris of the entire thing. Like, as a fan, when that happened, it was just like, I just thought it was a crash. And then when we learned, from Nelson Piquet, in the, it was just, I talked about it on the last one, right? Like, just the whole way that all rolled out, and that, they fired Junior, and Senior was like, well, let me tell you something. And it was craziness. So I think, to me, part of Crashgate was just the audacity of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then it was peak Nelson Piquet as well. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
they never let him on a podium again.
No.
Sure did not.
That was for different reasons.
Very.
And then I think it's hard to beat. I mean, Spygate is P1. I mean, I think that even still, that's the ramifications of that. It was a giant fine at the time. It was a giant penalty at the time, and we still see nothing like that. Hopefully again, but. It was big then, it's still big now. So,
but if we do, it'll be McLaren.
No, Zach don't play like that. Zach don't play like that.
That ain't how he rolls.
Fred maybe, but Zach does not.
Fred. Toto does.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's
he gets just leaked information daily.
Apparently. Who knew? Who knew?
Yeah. Please pass the mashed potatoes. And what did the FIA say today?
Right.
Let me tell you about Red Bull. No, I think that, it's a lot of hullabaloo for, 5 pages from Kinko's. I don't know why we still talk about it, but Spygate.
It wasn't just a Post-it note?
Yeah, pretty much. That they had to get photocopied because Mike Coughlin couldn't hold it in his short-term memory.
It's a picture of a little doodle of a car.
Here's the suspension. Here's the
But I think another thing out of Spygate too was how much we learned about the behind the scenes. Like we were talking about how with Abu Dhabi, right? The conversation about what the race director does. I think a lot came out about teams oh yeah, when we have layovers in airports, we just find a room and we chat about these things. That there's some amount of kind of information sharing in this kind of gray area that just kind of always happens with the teams, and they're just oh yeah, we do that. We just never would have taken it to a Kinko's, dum-dums. So, I think there was a lot that we also learned out of that, the kind of ancillary information. So Spygate.
Okay, Paul, what do you have?
Well, I think the 3 I picked, which are I think the same that Grace picked there, but way above the other gates. So I'm going to go with Spygate for 3 for sure. Although it was really had nothing to do with Formula One, right? It's just a guy that was in Formula One. It literally had nothing to do with anything. It was just the blow up of the tabloids that really just gave it so much weight. But really, its effect on Formula One is very different. Is zero compared to all the other gates we have on our paper here.
It did bring the sport into disrepute.
Yeah.
I will say it is nice.
It depends how German those uniforms were.
And your view on spanking parties. Maybe you're okay with it. Maybe you thought it upped the brand. Fair enough. Good on you. Whatever.
Maybe someone's been naughty and
I'm just glad that
the worst thing.
Yeah.
When ESPN carries something, it isn't because there was a big crash or something like Spygate. Like now it's just like, oh, Max was, because on the Chiron, I'll see Formula One come up and I'm like, oh no, it's just that Max won. Okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's still some residual like breath holding anytime Formula One shows up on the Chiron on ESPN, because it's usually something more like Spygate and less like,
or a drain cover. It's like, ugh.
Yeah. Make sure you watch the race this afternoon, right? Like, oh yeah, I'll watch the race. I'm gonna watch it. Thanks. For
in a couple of years, it's gonna be like, oh, what did Susie do now?
You wait, it's gonna be their next reality TV show.
It is. It is.
Susie and Toto. Yeah.
Yeah, Susie and Toto.
I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, with their friendly neighbor, what's his name from Haas? It's gonna be it's gonna be like Three's Company or something, and the Ropers, and it's gonna.
Is Gunther Steiner Mr. Roper? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What character?
Mr. Rover.
No, he's the guy downstairs, the single old guy.
Yeah. Then they got rid of him, and they got Don Knotts to play that role.
Don Knotts, that's what
right.
I mean. Yeah, Don Knotts is Gunther Steiner, I think.
Yeah,
pretty much.
We're gonna go down to the Beagle and have
Mr. Roper
party.
That's right. And exchange, little piece of information about diffusers and stuff.
Yeah, Janet and Chrissy. Yeah.
Can we have Bonato slide in like Kramer just for like? I know that's mixing comedies, but I just like that idea. Seems like fun.
Yeah, that would be good.
Like
So you had Spygate.
I got Spygate. They're moving on. Second is Crashgate, and so many implications that are still ongoing. Thank you, Felipe Massa. Right.
Yeah.
And then obviously Spygate, I think, is the king of all kings.
Yeah.
Just really showing you what goes on behind the scenes. Probably had happened before, but someone got caught.
Yeah. Yeah. It's $100 million fine.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of karting kids got to race from that money. Thank you, McLaren.
Yeah. And that was in 2007. So that was huge chunk of change.
It did actually have a lot of implications on a lot of programs that the FIA actually implemented. They used that money for a lot of actually good things.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't so good for Ron Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Grace.
I was just going to say, and it's the scandal that launched the pod. So would we be here if it wasn't for Spygate?
That's right.
I don't know. So,
maybe not.
I guess a personal warmth comes out of that as well. That, there was just so much to cover that we no longer could cover it on, typed media on a web page.
We had
to talk about it.
We had a nice website going, but when that happened in 2007, it just kind of spanked us into action, and we got busy. Yeah. So mine were the same as yours, Paul. Same three: Spygate, Crashgate, Spygate. I think Spygate is corporate espionage. It's a singular event in Formula One, huge $100 million fine. The one thing you'll enjoy out of that Max Mosley biography is his description about his relationship with Ron Dennis and stuff like that. I mean, very strained relationship and stuff.
I think that's an understatement.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's go to the next one.
Ron starts at strained. Like that's his base level relationship.
Yeah.
Nice, Ron.
That is love from Ron, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you go back and look at the video at the announcement when they came out and they were both standing there, it was so cold between the both of them standing next to each other.
They went like this?
Resolved. No, they didn't go like this. It was, you could tell Ron just wanted to kick his butt right there.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That seemed, at the time, it seemed like McLaren, how
Huge.
can they come back from that?
Huge.
How did they have that much money?
Well, I'd argue that, and we said this a few podcasts not that long ago, maybe within the last year. I think McLaren has struggled ever since then, and it wasn't until just this last year or two that they started to regain their footing. I think I don't want to overplay that, but I do think that took, you remember, Paul, that took all the wind out of the sails financially. Vodafone left, management shakeup, boardroom battles, Ron being jettisoned, Mansour and everybody taking over, and then bring in Zach, and all of that has been a slow motion train wreck ever since that. I think from 2007 to at least 2017 or 2018, I think that was the damage done to that team.
Yeah, and obviously that amount of money, as we know, things are very. It takes time to make a car good. It takes time for a car to go bad.
Yeah,
and that money, 2-3 years down the road, McLaren weren't so great anymore.
Yep.
So there you go. Yeah.
So I think it took a long time. Let's see. People controversies. Here is our list. Rich Energy sponsorship of Haas, 2019. Adrian Sutil, 2011 assault of Eric Lux. Lewis Hamilton, 2016 flight over the Turkish opera. That was just great. Vijay Mallya, 2018. And then Jean-Marie Balès, 1985 to 1993. Let's see. Grace, let's start with you again. Top three.
Okay, so number 3, I went with Rich Energy because I think Formula One has a history of some dodgy sponsorship. It's not as if this is the first time,
especially Haas.
Yeah, so there's, so in that sense, kind of like Spygate, like some of these things have been going on. We just heard about it here, but I think Rich Energy kind of was like the pinnacle of shady sponsors, and so it was just like everything there. Like if I had to pick one sponsorship related controversy, that's a good key intro lesson into the sort of dodgy
yes, mate. Do due diligence next time.
Yeah.
That guy's still going too. Have you seen?
Yeah.
Still post stuff on Twitter. It's like, Rich Energy, come back to Formula One. Everyone's just like, stop. Just stop. You're an idiot. What are you doing?
I tried to take the high road and say he may be on the spectrum, Paul. He might be. Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe he's just certifiable. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Grace. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, we're having a conversation. That's how this works.
Are we? Okay.
Yeah. I interrupt you and I call it a conversation. That's every podcast we're on together. I don't know why you haven't found that trend after all these years.
True.
So, I think for number 2, I was kind of like, I don't know. The others are kind of, there's a part of me that's like, I can't. So first of all, I can't believe I forgot Soodle. Like of all people, I can't believe I forgot that. It was a great, it was crazy. It was and he tried to stab the guy with a champagne flute. Lewis Hamilton was there.
What a crazy, wacky night those kids had.
Lewis Hamilton was a crazy night. I've never seen this guy before.
He was. And then the court case, and Lewis is like,
he had a car launch.
Adrian who?
Yeah.
I'm busy. I have a car launch. Deal with your controversy yourself. Right?
Adrian was pissed. He was like, we're supposed to be great friends, and the guy wouldn't support me,
Yeah.
And then I did want the Lewis Hamilton Turkish opera to go in here somewhere. But I think the whole Vijay Mallya scamorama, that should also have a gate name to it. And then the fact that he had to sneak out of the country in a suitcase, which this is it was just a whole level that even that.
No, that was the Renault CEO.
Oh my God!
I forgot about him too. Yeah. Is he still on the run?
Carlos Ghosn. Yeah.
You're right.
He's not. I don't think he's on the run now. But he had to get smuggled out of Japan.
In a suitcase, you're right.
Yeah.
I've combined all my like mid-level team owner controversies all
principles.
into one.
Yeah, escaping countries in one. Yeah.
Remember that
Yeah.
time Gene Haas killed that guy? Oh, wait. No.
Well, Gene Haas is no, saint there either, but that's not what he did, right?
Well, he had tax sort of issues. Yeah.
Sort of.
Anyway, so you have VJ Malia as number 2?
No, I went with Soodle as number 2 because I feel
okay.
I feel that he should be on there somewhere.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I guess VJ Malia / Carlos Nos because clearly I combined those 2 scandals into one.
Yeah, I think it's
one.
good.
Okay.
I think that's fine. Yeah,
All right.
That's good. Yeah. Okay.
As we go.
Paul, what'd you have?
All right. So out of those, I'm definitely got to put Jean-Marie Balestre on notice. That guy, through his period in the FIA, had so many incidents and actions, and so obviously bias, and was a cause of some other controversies that we're going to have coming up. I mean, he was just a thorn in everybody's side, and I don't know how he got the position he was, but he ruled it like an emperor.
He did,
and thought he had the right to dictate everything to everybody. And so I know a lot of people who are fairly new to Formula One didn't see that side of it. You see him in the Senna movie, but there was so much more that he did during that period that was just frustrating for literally the fans and drivers and teams alike.
Yeah, and then you'll love Max's book because it's basically how they screwed him.
Yeah,
how they played him.
Which I'm more than happy to think about.
It's pretty funny.
So there's 2 things you're looking forward to in that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things actually. So I'm going to go with the Rich Energy sponsorship. I think that was a classic desperation move. So many race teams, they're so, and there's so many hopes and dreams riding on getting sponsorship for a team and moving forward, raising the bar. That there's so many blinkers go on when someone walks in saying they've got a pile of money, even if they're an African prince, so
that's right.
That was just a whole big hoopla about it, and then just fizzled out into being a whole lot of nothing. But I'm glad actually that they were actually held their ground when I think they were being sued by them and everything like that. They just kind of called their bluff on it, and it ended up turning into just a bunch of babble on Twitter in the end.
Yeah.
But number 1 has got to be the Adrian Sutil. I mean, how often do you have a Formula One driver crack a bottle and stuff it into someone's neck? But adding on to what Grace had with a mixing up of which team mid-range team principal was trying to escape the country, I forgot about Bertrand Gachot.
Yes, who was jailed.
Who was jailed for spraying a cab driver in England. He went to jail, and that gave Michael Schumacher his Formula One shot.
That's right. In one of the most beautiful cars in F1 history, the 7-Up.
Exactly. So I think, an honorable mention to Bertrand Gachot.
Yeah.
For once again, a violent act that that actually ended up being a positive for certainly Michael Schumacher. Not so much for Damon Hill later on, a few years on.
Or Jack Villeneuve.
Or Jack Villeneuve. Yeah, or Rubens Barrichello. But
you two are silly. So here's mine. Adrian Sutil is my third for his assault. And I know that there's some new listeners out there going, wait a minute. Lewis Hamilton was with another driver who broke a wine flute and stabbed the glass into a guy's neck. And Lewis was there. What? Wait a minute. Well, I didn't read about it. Go look it up.
Yeah,
it happened.
Stevenage. Yeah.
It went to court, and Lewis unloaded Adrian. They were best buddies, and Lewis dropped him like a hot potato.
Yeah, Lewis is supposed to be a witness, and
he's supposed to witness, and
I
he was
saw
like,
nothing.
No, he's gone. There was accusations that there was this relationship between Eric Lux and Adrian, or it was, all this stuff. It was crazy when all that happened, and it flew kind of under the radar because it was pretty egregious. But anyway, I had that as my number 3. Number 2, VJ Malia, for all the reasons you mentioned, Grace. This guy
and the ones I added.
Yeah, this guy is like the Madoff, Bernie Madoff of Formula One. How he kept Force India going, I don't know. And I know, oh gosh, he just passed away sadly. Bob, the team boss.
Oh yeah, Bob.
You know who I'm talking about.
We do.
Yeah, and Otmar.
We'll fix
Bob
it in post.
Fernley.
Bob Fernley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how those two kept that team going on a shoestring budget with while the team bosses, on the run from the law in India and tax evasion. It's amazing. So, and then finally, of all people, Checo Perez brings it all crashing down. It was Checo that basically brought it to a grinding halt. For all the right reasons. I agreed with Checo. And my top one is Jean-Marie Balès. This guy was a loose cannon. He was all bombast,
power monger.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And the stuff that he did to control that sport, the stuff he did to Senna and other drivers was just unconscionable. If you thought Michael Massey was difficult and made a bad call or two, folks, you ain't seen nothing until you look at Jean-Marie Balès. That's why everybody, was apoplectic and ready to storm the castle with pitchforks and torches with Michael Massey. And I'm like, that's a mid-level error compared to what Jean-Marie Balès has done in his career. It's astounding. And the thing about Rich Energy, it didn't make my top 3 list, but Paul, you remember just the dodgy sponsors in the 70s and 80s.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Some of those were, involved in drug money. And I mean,
there's a lot of gangster activity in those early 80s for sure.
Yeah. Laundering money through it. It was very dodgy back then. So as crazy as Rich Energy is, boy, there's been some just all out horrible sponsorships.
I think that's, it's like through line of the sport.
It is. There could be really a good book written about that. There probably already is. I just haven't seen it. But it's like Williams with the Bin Laden family, right?
Right.
Just all those bizarre sponsorships.
There's a lot of Italian money at some point in Formula One.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's talk about car controversies. Here is the list: Aston Martin and the green Red Bull. Let's see: Racing Point, the pink Mercedes; Sauber, the Sauber Ferrari; ProDrive and Williams customer cars in 07; Arrows and Shadow in 78; and Tyrrell and Lotus in 79 is the list. I'll start this first one.
All right.
We're going to start. Number 3 on my list is ProDrive and Williams threatening to sue over customer cars. I think this was a pivotal moment for F1 where the series really could have opened up. This is before Drive to Survive, so it was really looking for more teams, more competition at a more affordable price. And they'd thrown out the cost cap and those kind of things. And they thought, and Max Mosley, I think, what is it now, 150 million, whatever, 140, 135, whatever it is the cost cap. But Max had thrown out something like, 70 million or something. And a lot of teams are trying to figure out, how are we going to do this? This is ridiculous. And then the customer car came thing. And Dave Richards, the owner of ProDrive, was taking the opportunity to come into the sport, create a team, fully funded ProDrive team in Formula One. He had been involved with BAR Honda before, and he was going to bring his own company, ProDrive, in and really go after it with a customer car. And then you had Red Bull and Toro Rosso, and Frank Williams just had a conniption fit over this thing and was going to sue everybody. And it said that you had to be a constructor of your car. The irony at the time is, I remember saying that it's ironic that Frank got his start in Formula One using customer cars.
Yeah.
And so it's, as much as I appreciate he evolved out of buying customer cars and then was building his own chassis, you got to start somewhere. And
I mean, I always thought it was a, maybe they could put a time cap on it. Where, you can start your team, get going, and in 3 years you have to construct your own car. I think that was fair.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so it's unfortunate because I'd like to see ProDrive in. Number 2 on my list was the Tyrrell Lotus. That was pretty egregious.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a little off guard with Ken Chirrell, but I don't know. What are you going to do? And then my number one was the Arrow Shadow. That was just pretty much a direct copy because the guy who designed the Shadow went over and basically used his design for arrows, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Yep.
was pretty egregious. Anyway, all right, Paul, what'd you get?
Okay, so I am going to start with number 3, which I'm going to go with the Racing Point Pink Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
We keep talking about or crossing of information between one team and the next,
Yeah.
and this seemed like an agreement
Mm-hmm.
for such things,
Right.
and it definitely worked out for the Pink Mercedes team, right? I mean, it launched them, into competitiveness very quickly.
Yeah, right.
But obviously I think they were obviously getting into a very, very gray area that we probably will see soon between the Red Bull and the AlphaTauri, whatever its name is going to be. But
Yeah.
it definitely for that, it was nearly a customer car while not being a customer car, right? So nearly along those lines.
Yeah.
Number 2 would be the Tyrrell Lotus. Obviously, I'm an old guy, so I remember that coming out on the front of Autosport.
Yeah.
There's the Tyrrell's like copied, and the whole thing at that moment was that Lotus had jumped ahead of everybody by coming up with a ground effect car that actually worked well.
Yeah.
Teams had tinkered around with it, but basically the Lotus 79 was head and shoulders above everything except for that fan car that they banned. But and then all the teams are like, well, what the hell did we do now? We weren't going in that trajectory. So, a team like Tyrrell, as you said, Todd, they'd won world championships. They'd designed their own cars.
Yeah.
They came out with probably the amazing the 6-wheel Tyrrell, which blew everyone's minds at that moment, right? But everyone was put on the back foot, and they didn't really know what to do. So Tyrrell went into the mindset of, well, let's just copy the guys that were beating everybody and see what we do. And that's why maybe Tyrrell did things a little bit different than you would normally expect of a world championship team at that point. But I think maybe at that point they had less money, so they didn't have the time to be the forerunner of technology. So they used everyone else's technology, and they did a pretty good job of it, quite honestly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then back up to number 1, which is the Shadow Arrows deal, which I talked about in the last podcast, was a big part of when I was really fully into Formula One, knew every little thing, and just astounded. I remember seeing the new Arrows car come out in the snow on the Autosport pages, and like, wow, this is cool, a new team, and who's Riccardo Patrese? I don't know, and then all of a sudden, very quickly, it turned into a bit of a farce, and then they had to therefore basically design a car in a couple of weeks, which obviously would be impossible at this point nowadays. But yeah, it was espionage once again leading the forefront.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Grace, what'd you get?
All right, so similar things, different order. So for third, I went with Racing Point Pink Mercedes. 2, I went with the Arrow Shadows, and I went with Pro Drive and Customer Cars for 1 because I have always felt that we should just have customer cars and this would be over. Because similar to the team orders discussion we had earlier, where they got to the point where they were just like, fine, do what you want, right? Just throw the papers in the air, team orders, I don't care, I'm done regulating them. Like, how much time is spent trying to regulate the second car that like Red Bull has, or the Pink Mercedes, or like just allow customer cars? How much like simpler would this be that you wouldn't have to like keep trying to regulate what's an independently manufactured car? What did you construct, right? And now we have a list, and so that was part of the thing with the Pink Mercedes, is like, well, the things weren't on the list when we gave them our list, so I don't know what the problem is. So like, it just seems like, just let a customer car exist, let the teams have another team, and then problem solved. Move on,
I mean, think back to when the Mosley initiative, and then we got HRT, and we had Marussia, and was it Caterham? Or was it Lotus? They came in as Lotus, I think, originally.
Yeah, they did.
There was the whole Lotus controversy,
right? And they had to build their own car. They were the ideal customer car teams that wanted to enter Formula One. They would have been Formula One would have been better for them to have customer cars, because
sure.
those cars were like 4 seconds off the pace, because they didn't have the budget. They were promised this budget cap they were staying within, and they didn't have the proper engines, and there was no way for them to actually catch up to where the F1 teams were at their level, and they were pretty much a joke. And gradually, they just kind of fell by the wayside and disappeared, and a lot of money was wasted. You know, it was a shame.
That whole thing killed 3 teams and put another 3 or 4 on life support.
Yeah, and isn't that when they have the like minimum qualifying speed? Like you have to be at least 107% to make. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
that's when Karun was out there wheeling a machine.
Karun, the seasoned, grizzled veteran F1 driver.
Yes, that's why I put racing points.
It's good.
Or
good.
Customer cars as well.
Like
they're good.
Very good. All right, illegal car parts. Oh boy, here's just
list.
some.
There's a lot.
James Hunt, car was too wide in '76. Mercedes DAS steering system in 2020. McLaren F duct in 2010. The McLaren brake steering in 1997. The Brabham fan car. The off-throttle diffusers, that was crafty. The Lotus twin chassis. The Honda fuel tank, the secret fuel tank that Honda used in 2005. The twin chassis was in 1988. The Benetton traction control in 95, alleged, Paul. The Rene J dampers or mass dampers in 2005. Williams water-cooled brakes. And then Tyrrell's lead shot ballaster brakes in 84. 82 was Williams. So there you go, Grace. Hit us with your top 3.
All right. So I went with, for 3, I went with Benetton traction control, because I think, again, that's something that, just driver aid in general, traction control in general, comes in and out of like, do we do this? Do we not do this? Is this racing? Is this not racing? And so I thought that Benetton's use of traction control in 94, of all the many things that happened in 94, was of interest. And then for 2, I went with the off-throttle diffusers, because again, I think that's something that continues to come up, that will continue to come up. Like, well, what is this? Does this? I'm just asking for a friend. If my car looked like that, what would you do? Would you throw me out? I'm just asking. So I think the off-throttle diffusers went in 2. And then I went with the classic, the Brabham fan car, for number 1, because that's great. I was just great. Ingenious. So
it was.
It wins
just
by
a very hot engine, Grace. I know
that's
very hot.
There's nothing here to see.
Got to keep them cool.
It's just a fan. See, look, it's fine.
They actually covered it up with a dustbin lid in between sessions so people could see it.
See, I think that's what you want from a controversy. Like, you have to have all your mechanics stand around it, or you have to cover it with a trash lid. Anything like that, you should definitely be up on the list. So
I like it.
I made my number 1.
What did you have, Paul?
All right, so I'm going to start off with 3, which is James Hunt. And I know we said the car too wide, and I mentioned before why that was, because, and it was a team error technically when you think about it, because Goodyear came out with a new tire that was a little more bulbous than it was before, and they measured it, and the car was too wide, but it was literally because of the tires. And obviously, at that time, I believe Ferrari were running Michelin's at that time. But the big thing for me is this:
was it Michelin or Goodyear? Was it Michelin?
I think it was Michelin at that time.
Okay.
It went, and James was running Goodyear's. But there was a lot of stuff going on in that year, a lot of manipulation, and a lot of wars in the courtroom. There was James Hunt's win at the British Grand Prix that went to the courts and got turned over, and then in the end, I think Niki Lauda got declared the winner for it. The Spanish Grand Prix, I said, with the too wide a car. Also, when Niki Lauda came back at Monza, there was a whole big kerfuffle with fuel that the teams were saying they got sent. James and a few other cars got sent to the back of the pack for that race because there was some convoluted thing that Ferrari came up with in the Italian Grand Prix of Monza somehow, that through the Italian scrutineers, they found illegal in the fuel, and so sent them to the back of the pack. So there's a lot of manipulation. There was a
What
lot
are you
of
insinuating there, Paul?
there was something to do with Ferrari, and and this is like the beginning of, honestly, this is the beginning of the McLaren Ferrari fight that year, and it hasn't stopped yet, right? There's a lot of animosity there. So the car too wide was one thing, but there was just a lot of things going on that year. So that was, I think, well worth. Illegal, not illegal. Let's call the whole thing off, I think. Second, I'm going to go with the Benetton traction control. Obviously, a lot of chatter. The story of Senna going to the corner and saying he can hear the traction control kicking in. I know Todd was saying that maybe some other teams had it, but the big thing was Schumacher won the World Championship. He was driving a car that, when you hear them interview the people on the teams, no one's really that committal to absolutely not, or yes, we did. Everyone's just kind of, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we did. No, I don't recall that at all. Very Bernie Ecclestone. I don't remember.
I'm an old man. I can't remember.
Yeah, we may have had it on the time, but surely we'd never switch that switch on. That wouldn't have been prudent. But I'm going to go number one is the Tyrrell lead shot ballast, and once again, it's because it's got more implications, because we know FIA have incentives. At that point in time, Tyrrell were the only team that had a normally aspirated car, and all the teams had to agree on rule changes. But Tyrrell, being the only normal aspirated tyre, were like the thorn in everyone's side to make rule changes for the turbo cars to move along with life, etc. And so a lot of thought is that a lot of this manipulation of whether they were or weren't illegal, because they were basically weighed before they got in to the race and deemed okay, but when they analyzed the lead shot in the tank, they said, oh, it was 27%. Then they reanalyzed it later on, it was 1%, so that wasn't actually illegal. So they made another rule to actually still get them disqualified. It was basically a whole ruse to get the Tyrrell team out of there, disqualified, so they couldn't have a voting point, so that all the turbo teams could come together and change the whole future of Formula One and turbo. So that's why I picked it.
Yeah, huge. Grace?
I already went.
Oh, you did already go. That's right. It's my turn.
There for a moment, I'm like, was there another glitch in the Matrix? I'm pretty.
I thought I was going to say, Grace, do you want to correct Paul on all these picks, please?
Okay,
Grace, would you like a rebuttal?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I forget.
No, it's your turn, man.
Yeah, it is. Reaction time's a factor. Please pay attention. Okay, so number 3, I have the Renault J dampers or mass dampers. Those were huge because they, in the middle of the season, forced them to stop using them, and Renault's season went to the floor. And it had a huge direct impact on that. My second was the Tyrrell lead shot ballast in '84, like Paul had for number 1. And my top one, just because I thought it's hilarious, was the Williams water cooled brakes, because they had convinced everybody that it's running hot. I get these special brakes. I gotta water cool them. And
think about the safety. Think about the children. If I don't have brakes,
we could kill somebody if we don't have these. We got to keep these brakes cool, And
you drive out pit lane and there's a big pile of water on the floor.
Yeah. And so you go down, there's just big puddles of water where they'd start and just bleed and just dump all the water out of it in the weight. And it was just, it was hilarious. Pretty ingenious. Well done, Frank. So that was mine. Let's see. 2 more categories left. The first one is political wars. And so let me read you our list on that. We had Panton piercing in 2022. We had
we got somebody's vote.
Yeah, that's my dog's vote. Yeah, he's up for it. I wasn't planning on this being the soundtrack of the podcast, so apologies. Let's see. Massa almost winning the World Drivers' Championship in 2008. Michelin tires expanding, and let's see. Michelin lack of race tires at Indy 500 in 2005. Then we had Abu Dhabi in 2021. The Bahrain Grand Prix protest in 2012. We have blackface at Lewis Hamilton in Spain of 2008. We had the driver boycott of South Africa in 85,
82?
and then 82, sorry. Then we have the FOTA breakaway in 2008. Bernie Eccleston, the 100-year TV rights in 1999, and then the FISA Focal War of 82. So those are the amassed group. And let's see, I think we're picking Grace to start.
Sure, I can start. I can go first and third. It's fine.
I thought you already went Grace, didn't you?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Did I? Paul, you go.
I already went.
So for third, I went with 80-21. I think that it's pretty big as far as controversies go. And then for 2, I went with the photo breakaway. I think even though it didn't amount to a breakaway, like that didn't end up happening, I mean, that was something that I experienced as a fan, and it was a bit of a thing. And so, and there for a moment, it was a bit, who knows? And so, and if you watch the Braun GP documentary, you got a little insight into what happened there with the photo breakaway. But I think that became my number 2. And then I think number 1, even though I wasn't a fan during this time, I think it's hard to not pick the FISA Focal Wars. I think even historically, that was such a moment, if you will, of political. That is like the political controversies of all political controversies in the sport. So I gave it 1.
Paul, what'd you have?
All right, for 3, I have once again the photo breakaway series in 2008. That was a big deal. I don't know if I remember it that well then, but I said the Braun series kind of, which I recommend everyone to watch. It was actually really well done.
It was really well done. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the reenactment part of it was really actually different. I thought it was pretty cool. Ross looks a little older, and but it is good. It gives you a sets a stage. I think it's good.
I love Keanu Reeves as an interviewer, and I love that they did the interview. They did part of the interview like in the room, like at the FIA. Like we're just gonna be in the conference room, and you're gonna sit there where you sat, and I'm gonna sit over here as Keanu Reeves. I'm just gonna ask you these questions. I thought that was
even though I didn't know it was Keanu Reeves till halfway through the whole thing, but that's just me.
I just love that he was just like Bernie Eccleston. What the hell? Like he just like asked these questions, and why did you do that? Like he just asked these questions in a way that.
Do you remember that? No, I don't remember that.
Nope. Okay.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, so that was a big deal. 2, I'm going to go with the Michelin race tires at Indianapolis. I was there. I know Grace was there too. I saw her actually start throwing beer bottles on the track.
Of course she did.
And I was like, "Stop, Grace!" But
the ones that I hadn't already thrown at Tony George were then being thrown at the racetrack.
Yeah,
right?
that was like the lowest point of being at a race in my entire life.
Yeah,
it was so frustrating, frustrating. They could have fixed it in so many different ways, and yet the F1 bravado got in the way of, logical thought. Think of the thousands of people that showed up there. Rules be damned. There's, let's get the race going and let everyone race.
Yeah.
Even if it meant. And they came up with so many different ideas. Okay, there's no points for the Michelin runners. There's fine. They still want to race. They'd still do it. And the points would still come out the way they did at the end. But it's just that.
Oh, man.
That whole bravado of Formula One, just the most frustrating part. And it just came to and basically killed F1 in US for a very, very long time. And I think, did they race again at Indy the next year? Or and that was it.
Yeah.
No one cared. No one wanted to show up. I didn't want to show up. They want to give you free tickets. I'm like, I really don't care. You guys are idiots. So anyway, that was a big one. Maybe more personal than maybe some of these other ones or bigger events. But and then number 1, the FISA Focal War once again, a big power struggle, and we saw it later on with the photo war, which was the whole situation reversed, right?
Yeah.
But that was a big power struggle that was won by Bernie Ecclestone and Max Mosley that changed Formula One forever.
Yeah, mine's similar. I had the photo breakaway in number 3 in 08. That was a big deal, and how that all went down. Then I had Bernie Ecclestone's 100-year TV rights that he did in 1999, which is huge financially. And Liberty Media is enjoying the benefits of that contract, which most by anyone's measure was horribly underpriced. And then my number one was the FISA-FOCO War in '82. Yeah, that was the political complete change. It was almost like Mutiny on the Bounty there.
Yeah.
Huge sea change in Formula One. Final category is safety. And the ones we had to choose from is the double yellow flags, Jules Bianchi's, the death of Jules Bianchi, the Halo in 2018, death of Ayrton Senna, and Jackie Stewart's outspoken about safety and his championing safety and all of his work on that. Let's see. Grace, what's your top three?
Because this was the greatest category to have to rank things in.
And to end categories.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave you on a real upper.
We should have ended with Spygate. We should have.
Yeah, we should have. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of how the show would go. Right, like. All right, so here's what we're going to do, Todd. We're going to take the first chunk. We're going to take this chunk. We're going to take this third chunk. We're going to put it in the middle between those two so we don't end on this high note of safety. But if you've made it this far, here we go. So I think for 3, I put the death of Jules Bianchi, which then stopped, having the cranes, right, on the course at the same, or marshals at the same time as cars were going around the track.
Brought out the VSC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
lots of activations on that one. Yeah.
I think that one really made a lot of changes, unfortunately, out of a death for safety. And I think that was one that I, personally, I was a fan then. I watched that race. And so I think that always kind of sticks with you, right? When you witness something like that. I put number 2, Jackie Stewart, because I do think that even now that's something he's known for. Again, as somebody who never watched him race, what do you know him for? You know him for the hat, and now for chasing down celebrities for Martin Brundle and safety, right? Like these are the things we know him for. And so I think that he really made an impact on the sport, as we talked about in the first podcast, that I think is very important. So I put Jackie Stewart as 2. And then I think it's hard to not put the death of Ayrton Senna as 1. And again, the changes that came out of '94, and you're right, how the sport was absolutely changed by that moment.
Yeah, yeah. Paul, what'd you get?
All right, so 3 once again. Yeah, death of Jules Bianchi. It was a case of whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And that's why we get frustrated with manhole covers and things like that, right? But there's a whole constant learning process for safety and trying to make things safer and safer and safer. But this was a glaring error, and certain things that had been just kind of pushed aside. And we're going to go, obviously a lot changed with the death of Ayrton, but not everything changed. And I think things became a bit complacent. And unfortunately, this was another wake-up call that I think everyone hasn't gone to sleep on anymore. There's different levels of where people expect the safety to be and what people should be able to put up with and the risk factors in racing, etc. But I think this is a level that kind of leaped it into where we are now with halos, with everything that's enacted there, which is obviously a very positive thing. 2, I'm going to say the death of it. Obviously, as I said, different levels. We're at a certain point, but no one could believe that one of the best drivers ever, if not the best driver ever, could have succumbed to something so simple as this. And so it put a lot of weight on the FIA to start making these tracks safer and safer and start thinking about every single aspect of safety in the car, outside the car, safety of the tracks, how they run the races, how they enact, etc. As I said, Jules Bianchi was the next step after that. And number 1 is Jackie Stewart. We talk about Ayrton dying. When Jackie was there fighting for safety, people were dying every month. Very, very, Jochen Rindt. I mean, so many high caliber drivers were dying so consistently, and fighting against that with with a lot of pushback. A lot of people had a lot of pushback. He had the audacity and the tenacious Scotsman in him to just keep pushing and pushing and putting everything again. He took a lot of crap from a lot of people pushing for safety, and he made so many leaps and bounds in Formula One safety, and I know it kept going, but it never would have began, I don't think, without Jackie doing what he did.
Yeah. As it turns out, those are my exact picks too. Bianchi, Senna, and Jackie Stewart was my number one pick because for all the reasons you mentioned, so I won't rehash them, Paul. Jackie Stewart, a stalwart in ushering in the safety. Had he not done what he did, Senna wouldn't even been driving in a car as safe as it was.
Right.
And so. It's pretty astounding what Jackie been through and all of the effort that he did at great personal risk and sacrifice of his time and reputation and everything, given the pushback. So, kudos to
Also,
him.
hats off to Ken Tyrrell for sticking behind Jackie too.
Yep.
Would have been
Ken
very
Tyrrell.
easy for him not to.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, that was my pick. Well, that's our categories. That's our scandals. That's our controversies. That's what we think about them. But let us know what you think. If you would rank some of those differently or add some of your own categories or some of your own scandals or controversies, let us know. You can do that. Just go to our website, theparcfermé.com, and leave a comment in the comment section for this podcast. And again, it's part 2 of a 2-parter. But we will just a show notes. We're going to take a week off over the holidays. So the next slated, it'd be for New Year's Day, would be a Monday. That would be the next slated. We're going to take that week off on New Year's Day. And then we'll be back, Grace, on the 8th?
Yep.
Yeah. And then we'll be back on January 8th in the new year to get started all over again. Rip roaring into the new year. Right. And so anyway, there's this part 2 for this week, and we'll hopefully bide you over New Year's Day, and then we'll hit the ground running on January 8th. And if a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, because I could not and would not do this podcast without you. Thank you so much for the reviews. If you like this podcast, you can go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a good review, show us some love over there. And if you want to support us, you certainly could do that. We're very grateful for your support. You can go to our website, theparcfermé.com. On the right-hand side in the sidebar, it says support us, or even at the bottom left of the website, it says support us. You can click on that and support us in multiple different ways, multiple different levels, and we're very grateful for that support as always. So a huge thank you. Working on some new stuff for the new year for our Patreon supporters that I'm kind of excited about. Of course, after tonight, I don't know what happened to our platform, but we'll see. It's a work in progress. So working on that.
It's the off season. That's what
it's the off season. This is where we vet all the platforms.
It's testing.
It's testing. Yeah. It's like Barcelona in the winter. It's testing. Yeah, this is our own Barcelona. So anyway, until the next time when we come back and do it all over again, Paul, thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful year. Congratulations on Heart of Racing year and an exciting year coming with all the GT racing, the Valkyrie, Le Mans, Bathurst. It's going to be an exciting year. Can't wait to hear about those races and stay in touch. So wishing you and your family a very happy holiday season. Grace.
You too.
Yep.
Grace,
Couldn't
thanks
do
for
this.
being a person.
Grace, thanks for being you.
You're not doing any of those things, but thanks for being here.
Grace, thanks for loving your cats.
Yeah.
So Grace, partner in crime since 2005. So thank you for all the years, and thank you for another wonderful season and sticking in there and adding the flair and panache that you do. And it's been wonderful and wishing you
technology.
And technology. Yeah, right. There's the right. And wishing you and Flip a happy holidays, and most importantly to all of our listeners / viewers out there, thank all of you for a wonderful year and supporting us. Thanks for all the kind words. I know there's a lot of content out there, and we've always kind of just stuck to doing what we do, and it's just friends talking about the sport they love. And there's lots of other content and interviews and stuff that's out there that's great, and wishing them all success. But we've stuck to our guns and do what we do, and we appreciate all of you out there who continue to listen. Some of you have been listening since the 100s, or even earlier, which is just amazing. You've been listening a long time with us, and I'm sure it feels like we're all friends. You've probably listened so long. So thank you so much to all of you that listen and watch our podcast and support our podcast. We couldn't do this, and we love all of you. Wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and whatever holiday you celebrate. We wish you the best and a safe New Year in celebrating your holidays. So until January 8th, until next year when we come back to do it all over again, this is Todd, aka saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.